Well, once again, it's time for meat at the table. And this is not the typical time. I've been doing this on Monday evenings, but it looks like probably from here on out, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing this on Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Thursday evening. So just keep that in mind. It seems like that's just working out a little bit better for us. And so that's an announcement. And other than that, I just want to jump right into it here tonight. I do thank everybody for their support. Thank everybody for their support as far as the YouTube channel as well, and that watches online. I really do appreciate that. And so again, here tonight, I want to go ahead and get started with this. We're looking at how to be a biblical man. 1 Corinthians 16 and 13 tells us, watch ye, stand fast in the faith, and then it tells us this, be brave, be strong like a man. And so last week, I, began to really go into how to do that, how to be a biblical man. And the thing that is needed is the fear of the Lord. Last week, we looked at just standing in awe of God's presence. And I want to go farther with that here today, the fear of the Lord. And let me just say this, it seems like this day and time that the fear of the Lord is missing. And I'm not talking about unbelievers, I'm talking about even us as believers, it seems like the fear of the Lord is missing. Why do I say that? Because culture itself shows that the fear of the Lord is missing. So I want to go ahead and jump right into some passages here tonight. Micah chapter 6. I was just going to share verse 8 in Micah chapter 6, going back to the Old Testament. But the Lord just impressed upon me to share verses 6 through verse 8. And I'm going to try to keep this maybe to hopefully 15 minutes. But Micah chapter 6 verse 6 says, wherewith shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves of a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, or with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? Now I want to just explain what is going on here. Basically, the children of Israel are asking a question. How do I come before God? What is pleasing in God's sight? And even today, as I thought about that, I thought about what so many people today look at as far as Christianity. They look at being a good Christian is going to church, listening, maybe singing some songs, listening to a message, putting some money in an offering plate, and then they leave and they go, well, I done my part. And they leave and go, that's what God asked of me. That's what God is pleased with. Now I'm going to give you the answer to that here tonight. That's not what God is pleased with, right? Is the church stuff. I'm just going to call it that, the church stuff. Is that really what God desires out of us? And the answer is no. I have pastored now for 23 years, at the same church for 23 years. And during that time, I've grown a lot in the faith. I look at Isaiah chapter 1, and when I look at Isaiah chapter 1, I'm thinking, God says the solemn assemblies and all these things, it just makes him sick. And I wonder today if, the same thing has taken place. And I'll get to more of that here in just a minute. But I want to jump on into verse 8 as far as what God doth require. It says in verse 8, he has showed thee, O man, what is good, and what the Lord require of thee. What does God really require out of me? What does God really require out of us? I thought about that a lot here as of late. And one of the things that the Lord just seemed to impress upon me over the last week was some things that we need to be doing, some things that I need to be doing, some things that the church needs to be doing, men need to be doing. And I'll just go ahead and tell you how it come about. Sometimes I get mad, and sometimes I get mad at the Lord. And I know that religious people are going to, jump on me about that one, and I really don't care. because I'm human and I get mad sometimes. And I get mad when I'm talking to the Lord. I get mad at him because I'm like, God, I don't understand. I don't understand why there's so much injustice. I don't understand why, the most innocent among us, and that is children, I don't understand why they're trafficked. I don't understand why, crimes are happening to them. God, where are you at? And why are you being so silent? God, why ain't you doing anything about this? And so I'm just kind of opening up, being an open book here tonight. Sometimes that's my conversations with the Lord. And one of the things that God kind of spoke back to me with was this right here. He said, why ain't you? And I really thought about that. And over last week, I thought even more about it. And I'm thinking, maybe the reason why today we don't see the hand of God or we don't see the power of God is because we're not doing anything for him. We think that our church attendance is all we need to do. No, that's not what God really requires, right? Or we think putting money in an offering plate, that's all, well, I done my part. No, that ain't what God requires. I mean, you're holding on to a passage in Malachi thinking that God's going to open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing because you threw a little money in an offering plate and you don't even understand that passage, because that passage is not talking about money. It's talking about grain. It was given to Israel, and it was basically saying to them they needed to bring their harvest, they needed to bring their grain into the storehouse. It would be an act of generosity so that grain wouldn't go to build the storehouse up to be a greater storehouse. No, that grain would go out to people that was in need. And I might touch that at another time. But my point here tonight is it seems like we're just getting everything wrong. What does God really desire out of us, require out of us? And maybe if we would stand up and be the salt of the earth and stand up and be the light of the world that he's asked us to do, maybe we would see the hand of God. One of the things that come to my mind was Moses. Moses stood up at that time against the most powerful government in the world, the Egyptians. And just a couple of things that they were doing. The Egyptians took and was drowning the Hebrew children, boys, in the Nile River. And so basically you have child sacrifice. And then heavy taxation. The rich was getting richer, the poor was getting poorer. There was no justice, no nothing. And Moses stood up against the most powerful government at that time, walked in, stood before Pharaoh and said, God said, let my people go. Even though Pharaoh threatened and everything else, Moses didn't back down. And because Moses stepped out in faith and done the right thing, God blessed him, God showed his power. And I really believe today that if we're going to see the hand of God, we're going to have to step out of our comfort zones and we're going to have to stand up. And that's what this passage is telling us, because if we claim to have the fear of the Lord, we're going to do these things that we're getting ready to read about right now. In Micah chapter 6, verse 8, he has showed the old man what is good, excuse me, and what the Lord required of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God. Now, I don't have time because I do want to keep this thing about 15 minutes, so I don't have time to go through all of them. But I do have time to go through the first one, and that is this. If we're going to say, I have the fear of the Lord, then I'm going to do what God requires of me. What does God require of me? Well, God requires, number one, before anything else, before love mercy and walk humbly, God requires of me and of you to do justly. So what is doing justly? Well, it's holding people accountable. It is not having any fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. It is doing the right thing. It is handing out justice. It's demanding justice. And so if we're going to say that we've got the fear of the Lord, then we're going to speak out and we're going to demand justice. And that brings me to this. Our nation, makes the statement, every politician at the end of a political speech, says, God bless America. Well, here's my question. How can God bless America when the people that is in position to do justly are not doing justly, they're doing evil? And I really want to direct this here tonight to just one individual. He might not ever see this. I hope he does see this. I hope that he would see this and he would do some soul searching. He would see this and have a checkup from the neck up, because it's needed. Mr. President, I have voted for you one time. I have voted for you the second time. And I voted for you the third time, because you ran on a platform that said you were going to drain the swamp. But now it seems like we've made a 180-degree turn, and you're making statements like, it's time to move on from the Epstein files. No, sir, it is not time to move on from the Epstein files. You have got the most powerful position in this land. You have got a DOJ that is coming out and saying, well, if we prosecuted everybody that's implicated in the Epstein files, then the whole system would crash. Good. That's what we want. We want the whole system. If the whole system if everybody in the system is that evil, that they would commit some of the worst atrocities in the world against children, then the system needs to collapse. We're not moving on from this. And so from where I'm sitting, I'm like, it's not looking really good for you right now. It looks like that it was nothing more than political lies like everybody else just to get elected. And now you're indebted to your donors, and your donors is on the list. And so you don't want to offend them. No, you need to do what's right in the eyes of God. You have been put in a position, the most powerful position in the land. And may I give you some passages. In Proverbs chapter 31, verse 8, it says this, open thy mouth for the dumb, in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. I applaud you for protecting the unborn and some of the legislation that you have passed to protect the unborn. I applaud you for that. But now we're asking, you need to go farther, and you need to do what God says that a king should do, even though you're not a king, you're a president, but what a leader should do. In Proverbs 31:9, open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and the needy. It is not time to move on. I could care in the least about the stock market. I could care in the least about the economy. The only thing that I care about, and the only thing that millions of Americans just like me care about, is the lives of these children that are being harvested, that are being trafficked, that are being butchered, that are being raped. All kinds of evil, sick crimes are being done to these children, and you ran on the platform that you would address it, and now, sir, it is time for you to address it. You need to do justly. Us men, we need to do justly. Folks, what I'm doing here tonight, every man, and let me go farther, every pastor in America ought to be doing this, but here's the thing, the pulpits are quiet. No man, where is the men of God at? Why are they not speaking out for crimes against humanity? Why, we just want to, make everybody happy. No, I'm not worried about making everybody happy. There is the blood of innocent children crying from the ground, and we need to start speaking up about it. We need to start standing up about it, and we need to start demanding, and it don't just need to be me. It needs to be every pastor across America. And I'll just go ahead and say this. If you're a man of God, if you're a pastor, and you're not saying anything about all this injustice and not demanding justice, then you're either not a man of God or you got a yellow streak up your back. One of two ways, you need to step down. because we've got to move away from the passive Christianity. It is sinking us. It is destroying us. That's why we're not seeing a move of God. That's why we're not seeing the blessings of God. That's why our nation is in such the downward spiral that it's in. That's why everything is collapsing. This is not the country that our forefathers intended for us to have. And so what we need to do, if we're going to be biblical men, is we need to start standing up, speaking out, and saying, no, we're demanding justice. Even if it takes, I thought about it earlier, even if it takes, liberals get together and they do this all the time for such nonsense, they want more than two genders. No, there's only two genders. There's male and female. You're not an it, you're not an oops, you're not an uh-oh, you're not a them. You are either a he or you're a she, and it was determined before, it was determined in the womb. You don't get to make your own decision about that. But they'll get up there and they'll march. And I'm like, you know what? It's high time that godly men, conservative Christians, maybe what we need to do is start marching on Washington, D.C. as well and say, no, we're not moving on, sir. You ran on draining the swamp, so pull the plug, drain the swamp, and if the whole system collapses, let it collapse, and just do what's right in the eyes of God and protect these children. I know some people would say, well, that's not being too godly. No, it's actually being godly. Because let me tell you what Jesus said about people that harm children. It would be better for a millstone to be tied around their neck and then thrown into the depths of the sea than to harm one of these little ones. We need to stop with the passive stuff. We need to stop with, I'm going to turn the other cheek. No, I'm not turning the other cheek. And then people say, well, vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. That is correct. That is correct. But may I also say this. David, the city of Ziklag, got burned with fire by the Amalekites. And David went and prayed. And David said, God, what would you have me to do? And God said, I want you to go after them. I want you to pursue them. And you're going to overtake all. Because they had took the women, they had took the children. And so what do we have there? God carried out vengeance. Vengeance is his. But God carried it out by the hand of David. You see, it's time today that we stop with the passive Christianity, get back to true Christianity, stand up, let's be a man, let's actually have the fear of the Lord. And if we're going to have the fear of the Lord, we're going to do justly. Let's demand justice. It's one of the things, I'm like, what can I do right now? I'm doing everything. Right now, I'm doing, the things that I can do. I'm going to use social media. I'm going to use YouTube. I'm going to use Instagram. I'll use Facebook. Putting it out there every day. No, we're not moving on. This is not, let's move on from the Epstein stuff. No, we're not moving on. He was a criminal. He was a sick person. And everybody that's on that list that is complicit in this, that has harmed children, that has raped, that has murdered, that has butchered children, they need to hang. Now let's do, and Mr. President, do what needs to be done and do what's right in the eyes of God, and that's carry out justice. And for the rest of us, we need to demand it. And I'm done with that here tonight. Lord bless y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. This is what I'm passionate about. I've done a lot of things wrong in life, but I want to end well. And in ending well, I want to do justly. And I'm demanding justice. Justice needs to be done for these children. That's the only way to make America great again. You say that you want to turn this nation back to a Christian nation. I applaud that, sir, but you can't have it both ways. If you're going to turn this nation back if you want to say America again is going to be a Christian nation, then you can't say it's time to move on from the Epstein files. You can't have it both ways. If we're going to be a Christian nation, then justice needs to happen. And them children, the people that's done it, they need to pay for their crimes. So, thank you. Have a good night. Let's do the right thing. God bless y'all.